Welcome. In this video, I'm going to walk you through setting up a triptych with 3 square images nicely spaced out. So I'm going to start with a new file. So I click on New File, and what I'm looking for once Photoshop catches up is I'm actually going to create a big rectangle. I'm working in inches. Because I work in inches all the time, I find it a little bit easier. But my measurements are going to be 13 inches wide and 5 inches tall. I'm going to keep 300 pixels per inch, and I'm just making a new image file. And the reason that I went 13 inches wide and 5 inches tall is I'm aiming for 3 inch by 3 inch squares. With a 1 inch border all around the squares, that they're evenly spaced out. So I've got my working document. The first thing I'm going to do is go File, Save As, and I'm going to save this, call it Triptych. I am saving it as a Photoshop document, and that's okay. I'm going to replace it because I was practicing just now, but I've saved it as a triptych. We want it to be a PSD and not a JPEG. And now I'm going to open the images that I'm placing into this. So I'm taking my 3 images, and they're opening up as fresh tabs. Once I've got, and you'll notice they're 3 pictures of the same plant. Not great. I took them last night with my phone in the middle of the backyard at night. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting those, and I'm just going to take Control-C, I come back into this image, go Control-V. And so now I've got a separate layer. I'm going to do that 3 times so that I have my 3 images in my triptych. And I'm okay if they're all on top of each other. That's fine. We can deal with that later. So I'm just selecting the 3 images. This one's big for some reason. I don't know how this one ended up a lot bigger than the others, but it did. And it's not causing me any stress. What I'm going to do is change the size of that straight away. So if I look down here, it shows that I've got a width of 2600 pixels and a height of 2579. So what I'm interested in, when I created the document, I said that I wanted 300 pixels in an inch. And that's a really common measurement for printers. So what I'm doing is just changing that so that it's 900 pixels tall. And I'm not too worried about it being 907 pixels wide, although I could crop that down a little bit. I've got my image. I'm just going to check on the size of the other images as well. So if I click on this layer 2, you'll notice that the width and height is 813. I'm going to change the height of the 3 layers, and I'm just moving this one out of the way. So when I click on an image, it will automatically select that layer. And so in the Properties tab, I'm just going to change the height of all 3 of them. I'm not too concerned that the widths are slightly different, but I do want the heights to be the same because when we look along the image, you'd be able to see if they're different heights. So this is just like graphing. If we're talking about having a specific location there, so I can actually define its location. So if I go with Y and I make that 300 pixels up, there's now 300 pixels from the bottom of the workplace or the workspace, and there will be 300 millimeters over here. So if I select on this layer, I'm going to do the same thing with Y, 300, and you'll notice it's not changing the X at all. So same thing, I'd like the Y to be 300, and I guess it's working from the top. So those are all lined up vertically, and if you take a look at it, this image has quite a lot of detail. It's zoomed in quite well. In fact, that's a close-up of the stalks of these flowers. So to maintain some balance, I don't want to leave this image over on the left. I want to put that one in the middle. And so what I'm going to do is just type in a number here on X. I'm going to type in 1500 and see what happens. Okay, so that looks pretty close to centered for me. And I can help you through the math to figure out how I got to that point. So now I'm going to go down to the layer 1, which is the one that's hiding, and I'm going to move this back to an X of 300. And if you remember back, that gives me a 1-inch border here. So if this is 300 pixels in, and this is 1500 pixels in, I'm going to go with 2700 on this one and see what happens. And I suspect that's going to work out. Okay, so those borders look fine. I'd maybe want to crop this image a little bit tighter, but that's a good enough demo. You don't need to watch me do that anymore. So to finish up, File, Save As. I'm going to save it twice. So I am going to save it as a triptych in my Photoshop document. Yes, I want to replace it. I guess I could have just said File, Save, and then File, Save As. And this time I want to save it as a JPEG. Why? Anyways, that's weird. File, save a copy. Let's see if that lets me save it as a JPEG. There it is. So I'm going to call it Triptych. I'm saving it as a JPEG. We'll call it Triptych 1 so that I don't get confused with what to hand in. And as usual, I want to crank that quality up. That's still a really small file, and that's the file that I would submit in Teams. Anyways, I hope that made sense. That should not be disappearing. Thanks for watching.